What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Mile ADV, a true beginner's guide to adventure motorcycling from a true beginner's perspective. We are currently on the side of the bike hiding in the desert because as I came to my spot where I normally like to film because it's cool scenery, the wind decided to pick up. So I'm trying to hide from the wind, so hopefully the sound isn't too bad. But we're still gonna move on anyways. We're gonna keep doing this. So without further ado, in today's episode, we're answering all of your comments and questions, or not all of them. We're just answering some of them that have come through that I found interesting. So stay tuned. All right, everybody, so before we get in the comments, as you can see, we are hiding behind the Ducati and the sun is directly in my face. So, couple of problems when trying to film videos in the desert. One, there is little to no shade in the desert. It is the desert. Not a lot grows out here, and what does grow out here isn't very tall. So not a lot of shade to try to get yourself out of the sun so you don't have direct sunlight. B, it always seems that when the wind picks up that is going to make it terrible for your audio. It is blowing in the direct opposite direction of the sun. So where normally you could face away from the sun and you wouldn't have this bad sunlight right in your face, you have the wind in your face, and so then the wind sounds terrible. So your audio is terrible, I should say. The wind sounds terrible. The wind makes your audio sound terrible. So it's a constantly losing battle. So today I chose sun in the face over windy audio. Tell me what your thoughts are. If you've made it this far in this video, subscribe, comment, leave a comment below. Sun in the face or windy audio, what do you prefer? Okay, so with that, let's get into it. This is probably some of my favorite things to do, is to respond to the comments, because honestly the comment section can be pretty horrific sometimes. But honestly, I have to say, as of recently, comments have been pretty good. You guys have been pretty awesome. There haven't been a lot of trolls that we haven't had a lot of those in a while, which is a bit surprising. So none of these are too fun as far as in like picking at me or like somebody just trying to say really mean things. So we don't really get to dig into those. These are all more general, honest questions. So we're gonna get into them today. Electra Willem, first comment today. He says, what's the point of talking about a rally? Everyone goes there for other reason, not only to spend the time riding with different bikes or buying more and more fancy stuff or bling. A rally is also about spending time with friends until the sunrise at the campfire, having a drink or two and talking BS. The way that was written, not sure if he's from the US. Maybe he is, or maybe it was just mistyped really fast. But yeah, I mean, I guess what's the point of talking the rally? I mean, obviously it created some interest because you watched the video, so that's the first piece. B, hopefully for other beginners like me that have never been to a rally before, like what was my experience like? I mean, that was the point of making the video. And I guess, you know, like spending time with friends, yeah, I get that. Like I don't really have a lot of friends that ride motorcycles, and so kind of went solo on this one as far as the motorcycle aspect goes. My wife came, but she doesn't like motorcycles, so it was kind of me enjoying the motorcycle stuff, and then we had to find other stuff to do. So that's a whole other story. But yeah, and I'm not a drinker. Like I don't drink alcohol. Actually I do a lot to try to optimize my health for longevity, and I'm kind of more into like the optimization biohacking thing of really trying to fine tune how I can get better and have a longer health span, not just a good lifespan. Does that mean you shouldn't drink? Not necessarily. Everybody teach his own. Everybody's got to do their own thing. So I'm not really a drinking, stay up late kind of person. Actually, I'm more of a go to bed at 8:30, make sure I have good quality sleep, don't drink alcohol because it'll affect my overall health span. But that's my personal opinion. If you like drinking and staying up late, do it. Have fun as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. You do what you got to do. All right, on to the next one. New rider here looking at a 23 Rally versus a low mileage 22 V4S. There's a 10K difference in the price and a bunch of differences in the bike's accessories, so much, and I'm stuck. And that was from Timothy Duncan BG3DT. Yeah, I mean, honestly, what's interesting about the standard V4S, when I did a test drive on that, I wasn't like super impressed, honestly. it didn't quite have the pizzazz. And I know like this is the same motor and everything's, there's just something different about this bike. The Rally edition, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it because I think on paper, technically the motor's the same. Like, I mean, essentially, except for the bigger gas tank, the bigger suspension, the spoke wheels, kind of the accessory stuff, everything else is the same. But there's just something about the Rally edition that like when I got on, it was just like riding a Ferrari, and it was like, that was what I was looking for, like that controlled big horsepower bike. But maybe that was, but also with a caveat, it could have just been because of my short test ride on the standard V4S. So the V4S could be very much the same and give you the same thrill as this. I guess so. It really comes down to personal preference. For me, I love the aluminum panniers. I think the plastic panniers that come on the V4S are kind of hideous. I feel like Ducati could have done better there. These ones are amazing. I think they look fantastic. They function fantastically. And in fact, they're better than my SW Motec ones. Like my helmet can fit in it. So if I'm running errands on the bike, I can drop my helmet and lock it in there. I don't have to carry the helmet around the store. So I also like the spoke wheels. I think they look a little bit cooler. Plus, not to mention like the rigid, you know, the off-road capabilities of versus a cast wheel. I do like the crash bars. That is also a benefit. I would say get a pair of crash bars if you're thinking about it, because at some point you're going to lay it down, and that'll just help protect a really expensive bike. But yeah, sorry, I don't think that really helped or answers your question, but that's kind of my opinion on the two bikes. Next, from Dan McGowan 4761. Personally, I think group rides are a great way to improve skills by riding with riders who are better than you. It helps you to get out of your comfort zone a little. But everyone in the group should ride their own ride. It sounds like the organizers weren't that organized. They should have had someone at the front of the group and a rider at the back. So this is about my video, one of my first videos when I talked about the first group ride I did, ADV group ride I did, and kind of like the bad experience, overall bad experience I had there. And yeah, I mean, there was like, they did kind of have the sweeper at the beginning and the back. And I think that was part of the problem, is that they did kind of have this sweeper, but me and like another guy had decided to leave and we were going to take like the shorter route back. And then they decided, no, we're going to double back. And then it was like, we pretty much rode by ourselves. So I pretty much should have just went through Moab and straight back. It would have been a better ride. But yeah, I think, and I do understand like getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. I mean, the same thing can be said like with mountain biking, that kind of translates more, you know, like you go ride a tough trail and you ride it with somebody who knows it. They can like pull you into a lot of lines you're not comfortable with, and kind of and makes it easier because you see the line, you see where to go, you just watch them go through, you carry the same speed and you know it's possible. So I do agree there. I haven't gone on another group ride. Hopefully I'll find another one and we can do an updated video there. Well said. Try some mesh gear. This is from, also didn't realize, same commenter, Dan McGowan 4671. Bad on my part. We should have made sure we did it. Everybody's different, but we'll do it anyways. Well said. Try some mesh gear. I wear the Revit Protus mesh armored jacket. It's really not a jacket, more of a mesh shirt with level 2 armor. Then you can wear a t-shirt over or under it. Plus then everything you own becomes armored motorcycle gear. Wear with the money. Yeah, so I mean, like right now I'm wearing a mesh like flannel armored protectant with Kevlar shirt. So I guess that was in response to my video about crashing. I didn't crash on the motorcycle. I crashed riding a bicycle at 20 miles an hour. I was riding a gravel bike. So it's like a road bike with thicker tires you can ride on gravel roads. And I wrecked at like 20 miles an hour. And it was kind of a bit of just a PSA as to like why, like on the motorcycle, drawing a blank on his name, another YouTuber, Motojitsu, he always says, I would rather sweat than bleed. And I take the same tone. I mean, even in the middle of the summer when it was like 103 or 108 out here, if I was out on the bike, I was still in this long sleeve with the armor, because the last thing I want to do is hit the pavement. And so it's just kind of, that video was just more of like, again, this reminded me why I sweat when I'm on the motorcycle versus just wearing a t-shirt. Even though a lot of times you're like, oh, I'm getting more comfortable on the bike, I don't need the armor, I'm not going to wreck. And then I think about, yeah, well, I've ridden bicycles for decades, and I took a spill, and that road rash on a bicycle was horrendous, let alone wrecking at like 30 or 40 miles an hour or even faster on a motorcycle would be brutal. So just a PSA, public service announcement, always wear your protective motorcycle gear. All right, on to the next one. Dzero Blog. I thought about the Rally, looks beautiful, but was at least 10K more than my 1290 Super Adventure S I purchased. I'm using the difference to pay for gear and trips. Maybe one day, but not a rush. Plus the KTM looks mean in the orange pops. I agree. I mean, the KTM has a unique look. To be honest with you, when I bought my KTM, I hated the look of it. I thought it was hideous. I thought it was like the ugliest bike on the market. But eventually that like grasshopper looking, alien looking front end really grew on me, and I really do like the look of the front end. I actually almost like the look of the front end better than the Ducati. For me, I had the money, so I could get, I mean, I'm fortunate enough, thank God, I count my blessings every day, to be able to afford the Ducati. And the Ducati for me is just like everything that the KTM is, just more refined and better. So that was why I went with it. But I agree, you know, like it's one of those things, like where do you put your value? And yeah, if you can say, if you don't have the cash, or you do have the cash, but you can only use that cash flow to go on trips and ride more, buy gas, and yeah, by all means, do what's in your means. But I agree, great purchase. 1290 Super Adventure S is a fantastic motorcycle. All right, let's look at Mr. NA Hoax. Price in Holland is 34,595 euros, which is 37,150 US, and we earn less money per month than Americans do. This one I just thought was funny because, like, if you're an American, especially like my generation, there's this whole like, there's a lot of like romancing the idea of like living, especially in that part of Europe, like Holland, Copenhagen, etc. It's like, oh, everything's so much better there. It's like, here's one case where it's not better there, and this person says we earn a lot less money than Americans do. So yeah, I mean, also another reason why I commented this one, of all the places that I've been to in Europe, the only place that I've seen like anti-American sentiment, and I've had people on multiple occasions say like, stupid Americans, was in Holland. Not in France, not anywhere else in Europe that I've been, that I have anywhere that I came across like direct anti-American sentiment, like multiple times, but in Holland. Interesting. So, Mr. NA Hoax, if you're watching this, do people from Holland hate Americans? Or did I just have bad luck? And again, this was probably, see, the last time I was in Holland was probably 10 years ago. So this is quite a while ago. So maybe things have changed. Or maybe they've gotten worse. Who knows? We'll let him answer and tell us. Okay, L Pete 531. It's now a beginner bike at all. You should know that, a beginner drop it. And I think you meant it's not a beginner bike at all. So maybe this goes back to the other comment earlier. Maybe people are watching on their phones and typing in the autocorrector is what's making the English not come out right. So I think you meant to say it's not a beginner bike at all. Yeah, you know, having now been on this bike, especially the Rally Edition, I would say the Rally Edition, especially because it's so tall, and when you get it out here and like in places like this where you got to do slow maneuvers over like bumpy stuff, and you got to be able to put your feet down. Like, I almost dropped the bike a couple times just trying to get out here today, like trying to turn around in this spot, and it was a bit of a nightmare because this thing is so darn tall, and I'm just a shorter guy at 5'9", if you haven't seen my short guy video. And again, I know I'm not technically short according to some people, but 5'9" I don't think is incredibly tall either. But and honestly, like, I don't care if you're a beginner or not, you're gonna drop your bike. I mean, there's a cool the guys over at Thrash and Supply, they have a YouTube channel. They make a lot of like custom parts for Harley Davidsons, and actually the owner of that group, he's like a stunt rider, and they were doing a video about Sturgis, and he dropped his 2020 CVO. It like fell over. So it's like, I don't care how good you are or how long you are, like, things can happen, you can drop it regardless if you're a beginner or not. So yeah. And actually there's a really interesting book that goes into the study of people who are professionals. It actually found that people who are newer in their careers are more likely to be a little bit more accurate than people who aren't, or like make more accurate diagnoses. And this was like, they were studying doctors, like, why did new doctors have better diagnosis and outcomes than like more seasoned doctors? It is because they were so afraid to make a mistake that they were like triple checking the work. I think the same thing could potentially be said for a beginner. You're so afraid to drop your bike because you haven't dropped it yet that you're gonna be really, really conscious about making mistakes. So maybe there might be some advantages to being a beginner and not dropping your bike because you're not too comfortable with it. Anyways, I digress. let's move on. This one I like because it was just funny. SW737 Flyer. Actually, your cruise control will not engage or remain engaged above 98 miles per hour. The software will not allow it. I guess sometimes, like, I understand, like, context doesn't come through like when you're texting if you're just writing things, but sometimes I think it comes through better when you were talking. And I was obviously trying to be a bit facetious and just talking about how, if you haven't seen the videos, I was talking about one thing I like about this bike is with the cruise control, it feels like you could probably do 120 miles and set the cruise control and you'd feel like you're doing 65 miles an hour and you would just cruise down the highway. But have I tested setting it? No, because there's no speed limit that's 120 miles an hour and you should always ride within the laws and regulations of your current area. And so there's really nowhere for me to test that, and B, I was being a little bit facetious, but I guess that didn't come through. That's why I thought that comment was funny. All right, Waldo 1122 at 10:33 he comments. I'm not sure why he picked this specific part that time out in the video, but I bought this bike as my first motorcycle, never rode a two-wheeled motorcycle before, and only took the motorcycle course beforehand, rode 80 miles to get back home from the dealer, and 10 months later, I'm still alive with no injuries, only dropped the bike once with the crashed bars, and that was in the first week. Yes, the bike is okay for tall beginners. So yeah, he's talking about, so I guess that's another point, right? Like here's Waldo 1122. He bought this bike as he's a beginner, and so far he's alive. But again, I think this comes back to my original point in my 1000cc bike. I bought a 1000cc bike for my first motorcycle. It comes down to personal responsibility. Are you gonna ride like a jerk, or are you gonna be safe and ride within your limits? Again, back to Motojitsu, who talks about a lot of safety stuff. You know, he's like, ride at 80%, right? Where you're having fun, you're within the laws, and you still have a 20% margin based on your current ability of where you're riding. And I think that's a great point. And, you know, Waldo appears to be that kind of person, right? Like he got his MSF, bought his bike, rode it home 80 miles. He did drop it once, but he had the crash bars, and so everything's fine. And 10 months later, he's still rocking it. So yeah, there it is. You have it from another beginner's mouth. You can buy this bike as a beginner. All right, and Jonas Bain 3538. How do you feel about the reliability or maintenance cost of the Ducati? I picked this one because honestly, as I've looked at multiple motorcycles, every dealer or every manufacturer said, oh, well, you know, the maintenance cost, except for when I was at a Harley demo days the other day, and I was riding a bunch of Harleys, and I was like, yeah, the Pan America's great, but it's nothing compared to the Ducati. And they're like, oh, but the maintenance cost is so cheap. But on the Harley is just so much better. And then I was like, yeah, but you do realize, like, when I took my Road King in, they were like, hey, just so you know, like, maintenance on a Harley is really expensive. And so honestly, I feel like maybe if you get into a Honda or a Suzuki or a Yamaha, then maybe it's super cheap. Might be my guess. But it seems like if you get into anything else, BMW, which is the most popular adventure bike, Harley, they told me they were expensive. I mean, maybe except for some of those like Japanese brands that maybe are cheaper. But again, I feel like with inflation and labor rates going up, they're all going to be expensive. And so right now I have had no problems with the Ducati. So far it's ran great. It's been fantastic. I got my first oil change, the first 1,000-mile service or whatever. It was like $300. It wasn't terrible. Not any more than it was on the KTM. I think the KTM was the exact same cost, to be honest with you, when I got my break-in service there. But so far, yeah, it's been fantastic. I haven't had any problems with it, but I only have 1,500 miles on the bike so far. So yeah. All right, another one. The Road King is a good bike, but lately they put too much electronic crap on these touring Harleys, so I think I'll stick to my old Electroglide. Yeah, you know, interesting enough, I disagree. I feel like that was my one complaint with the Road King, right? Is that it is by the time you taxes and everything, it's close to a $30,000 motorcycle. And you don't even have like a USB port to charge your phone. Where like, I mean, this bike, I mean, it has all the electronic suspension, it's got everything. And I do feel, and as somebody who works in technology, I mean, the software technology stuff does make for a lot of better features. I mean, like, look at this bike. You set this, I love the set it, forget it automatic kind of thing. I don't want to tinker. Like Kind of rather just like on my mountain bike, give me the recommended settings for my riding style and weight. I'll put that in the suspension and then ride. Like I don't really want to tinker with it too much. So I don't know. I think Harley's electronics could get better. I mean, they have, it looks like, having ridden the CVO, they do have some cool stuff coming out on the CVOs with like CarPlay, Apple CarPlay and stuff, which I think is nice, but they could do better, in my opinion. Just compared to, for what the cost is and what the competitors are doing, I think they could do better. And then the last but not least, from Suscansy, and this was on my 1000cc for my first bike, that was a bold move. And I think those are always interesting because it's like people either like watch the first couple seconds of the video and then clicked off, which is probably a good possibility, because like, did you even watch the video? Because it's like I talked about why I thought it was not necessarily a big bold move. It wasn't that crazy getting a 1000cc bike. So if you haven't seen that video, check it out. Leave your comments below. Do you have any other trolls? We're missing you guys. We need those like really angry, like, your video is stupid, you're saying all the wrong things, or you're completely wrong about this video, because we didn't have any of those good comments this go around. So trolls, we need you to come back. It makes these comment responding videos more fun. So if you've made it this far and you've listened to all these rants and I've helped you in any way, please leave a comment below, subscribe, share it with your friends and family, etc. And until next time, stay safe out there.